Third time's the charm. Day late, a dollar short. All the different things and the failures of the last 24 hours for me. Anyway, we're almostagreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Check out all the cool stuff I got going on there. For those of you who love the Hollaroo, it's coming back in October 26th. Hollarboo, hollarboo.com, hollarboo.co. Registration will start opening up soon for you crazy derby drivers, as well as any vendors who want to come on. We haven't booked anybody officially yet, and even when we do, we're going to keep it a secret for a little while, so stay tuned for the announcement of that stuff, but that's way off in October. Before then, we have some local elections, and budget season is upon us, and all that fun stuff, and teachers with guns, so yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today, and some other stuff, I'm sure. So anyway, Almost Agreement people, here we go. We're going to do a show. Hey, bud day.
Hey.
All right, so it's Saturday, so this is going to be a late release. We usually release this morning, but there was a sweet Game 3 of a wonderful hockey tournament. Unfortunately, our Nashville Predators lost 2-1, bringing the series to 2-1 in favor of those other Canuckistanis. Oh, actually, that's doubly fun. I forgot that it was the Canucks, too.
Yeah.
The Vancouver Canuckistanis. I stole that one. That is not an original by me. I can't remember his name. But it's a podcast my wife likes to listen to. That's his kind of joke phrase for Canadians, is Canuckistanis. So, Anyway. Been mowing the lawn, a little sweaty. But anyway, yeah, so the big news of the week is session is wrapped up. And the last one to sneak through on the big controversial list was officially the teachers can carry guns, but it's very weirdly worded. And basically, it seems like a number of districts around the state, Knox County excluded, are allowed to, the district itself's allowed to approve or disapprove that at large, regardless.
So who gets to decide?
I mean,
the district themselves,
right? The district administrator gets to approve or disapprove individual applications for people to carry in the first place. And so, a couple of districts have come out and said, as a district, we're not approving anybody to carry. And it seems like that's within the bounds of this new law. So Knox County has not stated as such yet. And then there's a bunch of hullabaloo on whether or not they should or shouldn't. Excuse me, email coming in, my B. But yeah, so the guns in schools is sort of a thing. We'll see how much it matters as the next little bit rolls on, because I don't know, one of the things that's interesting that I learned about this week on it, this deep down in there, you don't get anything. You have to go through all the certification. Basically, the requirements to be able to carry it all is basically a shortened version of what the student or what the school security officers do anyway. Like it might actually be identical, like their annual training that they do.
I'll say, do they have to do annual training?
Yeah, it's like 40 hours of training a year of some way, shape, or form. I don't remember the details of it. I don't know if they're exactly the same, but it seems like it's about the same. And so it's like we're going to have, if you're a teacher who has your master's or whatever and you're getting paid X and you're going to go take a course, like any other, generally speaking, any other combination of things where you go take advanced training as a teacher, you usually get a little pay bump for it.
Right.
Not this one.
Or they pay for it.
Right.
This is all has to come out of the teacher's pocket.
Yeah. And so really it's going to come down to, I would assume, it's really just a philosophical issue for a teacher who wants to.
Yeah.
And so the question is going to be like, and that's one of the things that's interesting with the way it's written is that it makes it kind of up to, it kind of sort of says that it's up to the superintendent of schools for that district to approve individual applications. And so the question, I guess, is going to be if a teacher who really wants to carry goes through the process and Ryswick refuses it, not because they failed any part of the process, but because Ryswick doesn't want any teachers carrying by policy, does the law have teeth in it so that teacher could sue the district making them let him carry it? And that's the level that it's going to have to get to, I think, to test this law.
I would think they would have already fleshed that out, but it's hard to say.
I mean, I think that's the I got behind this week. I usually listen to us on Monday or Tuesday. catch myself on stupidity and stuff like that and make sure it sounds good and whatever. And I'm still not done listening to last week's episode. It's been a busy week. And we were just discussing like the Supreme Court stuff when I was driving around earlier.
Which part?
Where we were talking about how, like, you know, I think we were talking about Marsha, who's apparently, where there's the philosophical versus reality of Marsha Blackburn is what we were talking about. It's like, well, I kind of philosophically agree with Marsha in the sense that I don't like the idea that the Supreme Court is making law. If the Supreme Court says this law that exists is within or without the Constitution, if the Supreme Court says the interpretation that this attorney or this defense or this prosecutor has put into this is or is not within the bounds of the law that currently exists, the functional change to the law should come from Congress or the State House, depending on what type of law we're talking about. But the functional change to the law should come through the representative elector process, not through the Supreme Court says, okay, this does fall within it, so now it's this. Because my complaint last week, and it's still my complaint this week, and it will be my complaint at the end of the time, I acknowledge that the vagary that is law and the ability to argue and that the changing times change abilities of X, Y, and Z, and that the Supreme Court is a little bit more fluid than the legislative process is, and that's a net good, I suppose. But with significant issues to me, like with huge-ass issues like abortion to me, when Roe v. Wade, when Roe v. Wade was upheld, I guess. I don't remember how that...
Overturned?
No, originally.
Oh, okay.
When that original case went to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court said, under the U.S. Constitution, the right to an abortion exists, blah, 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 whatever that original one was. To me, the legislature of the United States should have turned around and added that in a clarification so that it doesn't sit and hinge on that case forever. Because since they didn't codify it, which is what a bunch of, Biden ran on it a little bit, saying he would codify Roe v. Wade. He hasn't yet. Not only has he not, he let Roe v. Wade get whatever. That's a whole separate thing. But, so the function of, okay, the Supreme Court made a decision on a
How do you mean let?
I don't. That's why I stopped myself, because
okay,
it's not.
It's like he can't stop legal processes.
That was just kind of on the optics part of it. On the optics, as a Democrat president, he was presiding over the period of time where Roe v. Wade got overturned as a Democrat. Yeah. That's kind of the joke of let. But again, that's fucking whatever. That's not the point I was trying to get to. But yes, you're right. That's why I stopped myself. But, what would have been more reasonable back in the 70s or whatever it was, would have been that Congress would then, say, okay, somebody introduces a bill that says, okay, we're codifying what the Supreme Court decision was in Roe v. Wade. So instead of it being the functional law of the land according to the Supreme Court, it's actually the fucking written law of the land. And then we don't have the ability for 5 decades later, a shift in Supreme Court majority for it just to drop off like that.
I don't think there was enough sentiment at the time or really desire to codify at that time. So, I get it. I do. I understand that as a hurdle to the process. Even now, a lot of politicians don't want to touch it. They'll kind of weigh in, but
right. And to that, I say, go fuck yourself. It's your fucking job.
All right.
You need to deal with this shit. This is important things that we've been fighting over for fucking decades. Let's put it into law, and then we can rest and move on to other issues instead of continuing. Because you're right. Because it's to me, it's not even a fucking philosophical thing for these politicians. It's literally the
they don't want the risk of pissing off a good chunk of constituents.
Right. They don't want the risk of pissing off constituents. They don't want to lose the tool for campaigning that they've been using. Because that's my argument for, I think that's the biggest mistake that Trump as a Republican made, was putting the Supreme Court together that did overturn Roe v. Wade, because electorally, campaign-wise, it is killing Republicans.
Think so?
Sure. This Arizona thing with a weird-ass kickback to the pre-Civil War era territorial law madness. There are active Republican nominees for Senate and House and governor and all sorts of shit in that state that are getting the shit kicked out of them over this issue.
I think their House voted this week to overturn it. I don't know where it's at in that process.
Yeah, I do. Right. I had heard that they're moving to fix that and update it to at least this century of some sort. But again, the point being is electorally, it's super damaging. And Trump himself,
he even came out and was like, "You guys went too far."
Right. But as I say, Trump himself, since between court hearings, when he gets a chance to talk about not his legal issues, is he's trying to kind of paint this picture of, for the evangelicals, look, I got you what you asked for. I got that Supreme Court together. We got Roe v. Wade overturned. But at the same time, I'm not this hardcore anti-abortionist that is unvotable for by some of you middle ground people. He's trying to play both sides because I think he realized, like many Republicans did, that this was a terrible move electorally, which rolls me back to my point. I don't fucking care about that. Sure, it's a terrible move for you electorally. Your job isn't to get elected. Your job is to make things reasonable, make things functional. And so basically what they figured out over, and probably forever, what they figured out is they're better off not fixing things because that's campaign problems that they can say they're going to fix and never do. I think that goes to a lot of stuff. I mean, I think that's why things like we get these grassroots every once in a while for term limits in Congress. And you get all the, you had this grassroots of the banning stock trading by Congresspeople that we had like last year. Yeah. Like that whole thing, that big grassroots thing kind of swelled up, and then it falls apart. And then it just dies off because we don't understand how to keep up with the process. And Pelosi killed it before it got to the floor and all these little games that they get to play. And it's like, well, that's what these are the things, these are the populist opinions of the land, is that, like, if at the time that was really hot and heavy, if we had a ballot initiative, if we had a good fucking voter turnout, which is a whole nother thing, I know. But if we had good energy from an electorate and had that as a ballot initiative, if that was right next to, if it was vote for Trump, Biden, and then should Congress be able to be able to allow to hold or buy stock during their whatever, however you word that one, I'll bet you it would have passed that Congress can no longer buy, sell, trade, or hold stock during office. Because I think the populace wants that, but they don't. But if you're in Congress, you don't want that because that's, you make way more money in that than you do being a congressman. So I guess all that is to say, I don't. The idea of the representative government that we are supposed to have on a lot of issues seems dead to me, and I think one of the problems with that is that elections have become more important. I think it was a Randy Pace one. It's like something about getting elected becomes more the job than governance. Campaign before governance or something like that. I can't remember what his little phrase was. Right. Yeah. But they like to campaign more than they like to govern.
They spend a good chunk of their time in the position campaigning to remain in that position.
Right, or campaigning for their party at large constantly. Like, and it's either way, like, yeah, and it's gross. Like, I think I don't know how to fix that. That's one of those impossible issues because you have to play the game, and I'm convinced that, and we'll see, maybe. I might vote for Gloria, not because I have a particular philosophical like or dislike, but I do believe currently Gloria is a pretty independent, self-reliant Democrat of sorts, but I'm kind of curious to see what the machine does to her in a very guinea pig sort of way that's probably not healthy for her as an individual. But, I mean, at least in my personal experience, which is, as soon as she announced that Senate campaign, I haven't been able to. She hasn't responded to me in any attempts to contact. Right. Where I have contacted her before, and she usually texts or call me back. And again, I'm not holding that against her directly. I'm just anecdotally, when she at least entered the federal realm, she no longer became as accessible as she was. And granted, there's a lot more people asking for her attention.
Right. She kind of got famous last year, and then she had another story that came out recently. I guess she came out and told her story of having an abortion not too long ago. Not long after she'd gotten married. But I guess the story was about, I guess, more politicians and, well-known people that are bringing about their stories of, either trying to conceive and kind of their...
Well, but it goes back to, I think, what we were just talking about. This is not a popular issue for anybody.
Right.
The thing about Tennessee Republicans, at least, is they have such a strong majority that it's kind of makes this huge problem point not as impactful as it could have been. Because even just in state level politics and the voucher thing and all this other stuff going on, like there are guys who are Republicans that voted for the trigger law as it was and voted for this, that, and the other, which are some really gross things that we as Tennesseans don't want. But they voted against this voucher bill, and for their local populace, that might be enough. And it's like, yeah, I don't like him on abortion. I don't like him on this. I don't like him on that. But man, he shut down Governor Lee's voucher program, and we didn't want that. So if he runs again, I'm going to vote for him again, or her,
right,
or they, whatever. You know what I mean? I would just say like it's such a, there's so many things. I don't know. I know I've asked this question before, and I'm repeating myself, but like, how do people? I'd love to know this, and I really need to lean back on Scott and Jesse and see if they'll power poll this. I really want to know how people prioritize candidate issues. I'd love to see I'd love to see a statewide poll on that, not just a power poll, but I'd love to see how people do that. Like, what's your number one issue? What's your number two issue? And then follow that up with a question like, okay, if a candidate's on your top 5 issues, if a candidate has 1 and 2 that you agree with, but 3, 4, and 5 they're on the wrong side of, where the other candidate is the wrong side of 1 and 2, but on the right side of 3, 4, and 5, how do you balance those?
All right.
Because I would wager that most people don't consider it, don't think about it, and so that's the other question too. Like, if there's a fill in the, like, I mean, I don't know what the write in your own answer would be, but I'd be curious to see some of those answers. Oh, he's a handsome fella. He looks smart, so I voted for him.
I mean, how would you feel about legislation through just like general polls? If a representative sent out a poll to all its constituents as, what should I do next? And
I think there's a fine line.
55% vote for this. Like, should they start a bill? They're like, hey, a plurality of my constituents want a bill on this.
Well, no,
so
that would be
what I'm doing.
That would be a majority. Plurality is when, like, you have something that 35% say one thing, 32% say the other thing. But the plurality
the
means
larger
the larger of the
group.
two. It's when you pass the 50% hold. But yes, anyway, I don't know. I think it'd be interesting. I think there'd be. I think I wouldn't. I mean, the problem is, and the same problem you have, and it's the impossible solution of mandatory voting. The engagement is an issue,
right?
Because I joke all the time. If I were Mayor Jacobs, and I won my county mayorship with 55% of 20% of the population, I don't think I'm going to feel like a winner. And if that same 55% of 20% are the ones that are engaged when I put out a poll like this, it doesn't really tell you anything. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you get, just for example's sake, I don't know, pick an issue.
Well, I mean, they're already making laws on even smaller. Like, I had a constituent reach out to me about this.
Right. One guy asked for it. And so, and again, because the other one too is like, what do you do? Like, what do you do if you, because I joked about that once too, is like, if I was going to run for office, I would do that. Or at least I wouldn't do it as I would say, here's a bunch of things, vote on it, and I'll tell you what if I get majorities on them, I'll write bills and make it. It was going to be, I'll put a layman's version of a bill that's out on my website. You guys vote on it, and I'll vote the way you guys tell me to. But again, the actual engagement being one issue, but the second one being when people are just wrong. Like, the population is wrong. Like, I've joked about it, and I know it's my stupid example, but the problem, I acknowledge, or I would argue that democracy is a better version than other. But at the same time, democracy can be abjectly bad and wrong on issues. And how do you play that? How do you make that decision as the elected official? It's like, well, the Democratic consensus on this is that we should kill all dogs. We should kill all pit bulls because pit bulls are mean dogs. That's the Democratic consensus, but that's just wrong. I'm not going to put a bill on the floor that says pit bulls are illegal and should all be killed in the state of Tennessee. But democracy says I should, but I will not do that because it's morally wrong.
Yeah.
And so where do you draw that line as the politician if you're going to do that? I don't know. And that's the tough part of the representative government game, but it's also the inverse part of, like, we in mass are especially stupid, and if we in mass voted on everything, I don't know. I mean, I think there's some things that would come out better than the way they do now, but I think there's some things that would come out worse. But I mean, I think some of the major issues, I think maybe that's what it should be. Maybe there should be some sort of, like, trigger mechanism to force a ballot initiative. Like, if the issue is of this magnitude, whatever it is, if it's had this long standing of back and forth or something like that, then it forces. Because I think as a ballot initiative, abortion would be at least 16 weeks in Tennessee.
Maybe constituents can do a ballot initiative correct? If they get enough signatures?
I mean,
can they force a ballot initiative?
Technically, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Technically. But that is as technically a yes as it would be for me and you to build a rocket ship to the moon.
Right.
Like, it's possible. We could do it. But it's not going to happen.
Should the bar be lowered?
Yes. I think the local one more than the statewide one. But yes. I think it should be a more accessible option. I said it should be a difficult thing to do. It shouldn't be like me and you and 5 people sign a petition and now we force a bill on the floor of the state house that I'm going to stick with killing pit bulls apparently. So we force a bill on the state house to kill all pit bulls in the state of Tennessee, which I don't know. Actually, I don't know. It depends. I guess there's 2 ways I think there should be a very low bar for constituents to put a bill on the floor. I think that would be okay to like force a bill on the floor that they have to vote on, but then they would be the false safe. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that'd be a method that maybe might make a little more sense. Because then, like some of these issues, because I would like to because some of the guys and girls, that are in the state house right now are some of the ones, Briggs, for example, who did vote for this trigger bill back in '96 or whenever that trigger bill went in. When did that trigger bill go up? It was a while ago.
Not sure.
But you know what I'm saying? Like there are some people that are in the House and Senate currently that were in the House or Senate when this trigger law was passed that got us to where we are. But I would like I would like there's certain issues that I think it would be appropriate to see where everybody's at right now on. Like you have to you can't vote present. You have to go yay or nay on X. Because I would like to see, so if we wrote a bill allowing abortion up to 20 weeks in the state of Tennessee, had it all written correctly and had some sort of mechanism where we could force that on the floor, all 100 of them, 100, is that right? Yeah, all 100 of those House members would have to vote yes or no on that bill, and then everybody in the state knows where they sit on that one issue. There is no rhetorical gameplay in campaigning. It's like, no, I would definitely vote for that. Well, you didn't when we had one on the floor. Why didn't you vote for it then, but you're telling me you would vote for it now? I think that would be appropriate. I think if you're going to run for office, I think there should be some obligation to commit to certain surveys. I don't know exactly how to function that, but I think there's a bunch of different little ones. Like Becky Massey was talking about how some little girl had written a pledge to be nice in campaigning or something like that. And like it got some groundswell, and they went and like mailed it to every candidate running, like statewide.
All right,
like every senatorial candidate running, they mailed it to them. And like Becky was joking about how like she got it and she read it. She's like, "Yeah, I like that. I'm good with that." Sign it and send it back. But it's like not that specific one. But yeah, I'd like to see more of that. Where like I think it should be damaging as hell on all levels, and this goes to presidential currently as well. I think it should be damaging as hell. If not exclusionatory, is that a word? Exclusionist, for you to not debate anywhere in your process. I think if you're gonna primary, you should have a primary debate, minimum 1, and a general debate of a minimum of 1.
What about requiring a public input session every so often? Be like, you've got to go back and literally face your constituents every once in a while.
I don't know. See, because I'm even as I'm saying my debate one, it only matters to those of us that bother paying attention.
All right.
Because the people that are going to show up, because I don't know, like I get where you're getting at, but at the same time, it's like it's the same thing as all these building projects that the neighborhood groups come down and pitch fit about. Only the negative people are going to show up.
True.
So if I take Becky Massey's seat and I'm Senate seat 6, and I hold a quarterly meet and greet, like 80% of that meet and greet are people that are going to be pissed at me. It doesn't tell me anything realistically about the demographic or my constituency. It just shows me at least a strong handful of who are pissed off about it.
All right.
And then from the media side, 80% of the people that showed up came and yelled at Seth about his stupid policies. It's like, yeah, but
I'm sure
100% of the people that were there are 5% of the population I represent.
Right. I'm sure somewhere under those gripes would be, true issues that are, truly.
Sure. But you can't make me listen.
True.
Or react. But I don't. I mean, yeah, I think. I think Elaine Davis, for example, in my inability to get any. And again, not as a media person, as a constituent, because I am a constituent of hers. It's not like, I have talked more to Gloria Johnson since the last election cycle, who is not my rep, than I have Elaine Davis, my actual rep.
Right.
And, to the point where I stopped. I don't even try anymore. I don't even know I don't even know if she's got I haven't even looked at the petition polls for that race. But which I don't like that. I have a serious problem with that. Like, for those out there in District 18 that aren't engaged, okay, that was your choice to not be engaged, and I can't make you be engaged. I'd like to, but I can't. But for those of us that are engaged, and my engagement is just slapped away every time, that's a little frustrating. I won't lie. And I think that I don't know if there's a way to but again, that's them making a law against a law that for themselves, which they rarely do. Which goes back to my other one that I was making fun of last week. I want to be the Eric Wader of the ridiculous candidates, the ones that I get people to run on issues that are actually real popular issues by function, not by sentiment, and watch them all lose. Because I really do. It's too late now, but I'd like, if I could get Garrett Holt, if I could pull Garrett Holt under my umbrella of what's the word, consultingness, be like, this is the deal, man. Nobody in District 4 wants growth. Run on killing any growth that comes anywhere near District 4, let alone county at large. He'll probably still win, but actually, I don't know. Cameron, who is it? I don't know. I forgot his name. Anyway, we'll see. It'll be interesting because District 4 is kind of purpling. It's still a red district, but it's purpling at this point. But I don't think it's a winner.
Yeah.
But I think it's the truth, and I think that's one of the problems that I don't know how to fix. That I think we've been kind of poking around at today, because I think the truth is, if it was a democratic process where we as District 4 voted on whether we should allow a $75 million 200-unit apartment complex to go in right here on top of the Rocky Hill Shopping Center, that's completely out of code, I know, but if it was somehow within code as current standing, I guarantee you we would vote it down as a district.
Probably.
And it's like, well, proves my point. We don't actually want growth. But city budget came out. School budgets came out. Both are up. Apparently some cool stuff going on in the zoo department.
Yeah, I saw Kincannon did her State of the City.
I watched it.
Called address.
Yeah, I watched it. The dude that read the poet guy. I guess we have a
poet laureate,
a city poet laureate. He gave us he did a reading of his "This is Knoxville" or "Knoxville is You" or something like that was the name of it. It's pretty good. Pretty well, sneaking in. Like, he made a Fellini Kroger joke.
Really?
Yeah, and called it Fellini Kroger. And then Tommy Smith, who's the vice mayor and was also like the master of ceremonies for the event, like, he introduced the different people, and then he introduced the mayor. He said something about how, like, he was trying to say something about how, like,
former city rep, same. Or am I thinking of a different Tommy?
No, you're right. He's currently.
Oh, is he holding both?
Yeah,
roles?
the chair of the city council is the vice mayor.
Gotcha. Sorry. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't explain that well. It's weird. But then he made some joke about how, like, a lot of the Krogers in towns have their own little nicknames or whatever. And it's like, not like that one. Like, that one's that one's ingrained. Like, I called it Fellini Kroger for years, not knowing what the reference was.
Right.
And then I looked up the reference, and it's like, that makes total sense. Do you know the reference?
I think someone told me a while ago, but I've forgotten since.
It was a writer. I think he was a playwright. The guy named Fellini was a playwright, and his plays were very distinct in the craziness of his characters, like really weird characters he did in his plays, or musicals or something like that. Whatever his performance thing was, he made some of the craziest characters that, like, on the surface for most people, be like, those people don't exist, or at least those people don't exist in the same space. You might have some crazy weird guy, but not in a group of crazy weird guys. But Fellini Kroger there's a lot of crazy weird people, and so that's where the name came from, which is hilarious. I always called it Fulton Kroger before I heard Fellini. But yeah, apparently there's a big some new zoo stuff that the city is investing in, more homelessness attempts and stuff like that. KPD is going to get a significant raise. Then one other thing, I can't remember what else was the other kind of big, kind of top line one. They're putting a new roof on the World's Fair Amphitheater.
Huh.
Which is actually well played by Kincannon, because that's where they did the presser for the release of it.
What do you guys think of the surroundings? Have
She's
you guys
like,
looked up?
She's like, everybody look up. It's time that we get a new roof in this place, and that's happening this year or something like that. I was like, nice. Very dramatic. Good.
It was always on like the edge of being derelict, but I mean, in high school we did concerts there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't ever I mean, to me, I always could feel it just felt that late 70s, 80s vibe.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't that it was it wasn't that in my recollection, at least.
Totally 1982 vibe.
Right. Yeah. But in my recollection or whatever, it wasn't anything about, well, I'm sorry, let me take it back a second. It's that futuristic 80s vibe that wasn't the 80s, it was the 80s version of the future.
Right. This is what the 90s are going to be all about.
Yeah. And then there was some other joke about we should bring the Simpsons back and show them the Sunsphere now or something like that she made in the speech. But, I don't know. It's an interesting, there's nothing that I found particularly objectionable. She was excited about the stadium getting opened. This really weird video that they produced. It's just like a bunch of city employees talking about how much they love working for the city, and this one dude's been working for the city for 50 fucking years. It was just some engineer or something, wanted to in engineering. He's a trash collector or something like that, but he's been working for the city forever, and how much he loves working for the city, and he's probably pretty happy because he's getting a raise like everybody else that works for the city.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how that all rolls out as it does. The growth plan is now officially through county commission, so now we get to go from this big broad version of it to now they're going to start changing and getting the zoning. They have a new county zone plan that they have to do that puts the zoning to match what the growth plan says. So that's phase 2. And then I guess phase 3, which is going to be another couple of years before we get to phase 3, will be something along the lines where it's parcel by parcel. This parcel is its zoning. This is what it can and can't do. And so, all of this won't come to full completion until after Mayor Jacobs is probably out of office once it gets down to it.
Yeah.
But
I thought they would have had some of that in the plannings. They're like, hey, 2 years out, we're going to rezone this area from this to this.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's kind of one of those. It's so the general plan, which is the one that's completed, is kind of this is where we're going, and then we have all the there's all this it goes from this is the broadest, and it gets more defined until it gets down to this parcel by parcel map. Where, you go to your KGIS report and it says, zoned R1, zoned R2 or whatever. And so then once this next couple of rounds of things gets through, that's when you go to KGIS and it's now changed from R1 to R3.
It's different residential levels, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And so it's because R1 is single family dwelling, 1 per or 4 per acre or something like that. And then R2 is when you get up to still single family, but you can do 6 per acre. And then the more dense it gets, the bigger the R number gets, or something like that. But yeah, we'll get there, I guess. Hopefully we'll be out of town by then. I don't want the growth. I guess I do want the growth, but I don't want the growth. I don't want to live in the growth. And so I'm going to take the.
Like you said, we don't want the growth.
We don't.
You can't include yourself with the we.
We are the we. I am the we.
You got to start throwing in the they.
No, we don't want. I don't want to deal with what the growth is doing. I don't like it. It is not the traffic and the congestion and just the changes that have come into this neighborhood over the decade that I've lived here. I'm not pleased with the way this neighborhood is going. Right. So instead of pretending like I can change what other people are doing on their houses, I'm going to sell this house in the next I'm going to let the kids get through school, but probably after the kids graduate, we're going to go move out into McMinn County or some rural whatever and see if the way property values are going, I'll have $1 million to buy a mountaintop when I sell this house. And
those property values went up too.
I know. I know. That's why I keep going back and forth. It's like I'm actively looking. I'm not trying super hard, but like I'm looking around and like if I can find like 15, 25 acres somewhere out in the woods that's remotely accessible, like not on a highway, but not like
you got to drive an hour and a half to get groceries.
Right. You got to drive an hour to get to a road to get to.
It's going to cost you $500,000 to not pave your driveway, but just throw gravel down on your driveway.
Yeah. So, that I'm passively like I'll just like if I'm bored, I'll just get on Zillow or some farmland retailer.com or something like that and see if I can't find some acreage. And if I can get it, I'll get it in the next couple of years and start doing parts and pieces as time goes. But I want to get out of it's getting too big for me. I don't want it. But I'm going to do what I believe is the correct move and get the fuck out.
It used to be, I mean, even how close it is to major stuff, it was a little quieter, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have this North Shore Corridor Association who's been fighting this big development over on the just a little bit down here on the river. Like it's off not Tools Bend, but one of the roads, one of the more major roads that turns left off North Shore and goes towards the river between here and
Keller Bend,
maybe something like that. So it's over here between Morel and Ebenezer, because it widens out, it gets kind of fat before it gets to the river, and then it thins back out when it gets downtown. There's some guys want to put he bought the land, he's doing all this stuff, he's been fighting with the county and the neighbors about it, and it's like, some of the neighborhood complaints aren't wrong. Rocky Hill can't fit more kids, North Shore Elementary can't fit more kids, but you're going to put a 300 unit mixed style development where it's like 100 units of single family housing, then then a 100 unit complex, and then another 100 unit complex or whatever. It's like it's this big elaborate residential thing that he's wanting to put together, and it's like North Shore can't handle that traffic.
Right,
it can't. But the reality is something's going to get filled in back there, and North Shore is going to get bigger. It's going to have to. It already has to with what's currently here and been developed already. It's already a very difficult road during higher traffic periods.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's pretty chill. Still pretty chill every once in a while. But it's like, we talk about Nubbin Ridge, like when we were in high school, like I never went past Wallace, but like twice to get from Ebenezer to Morel. Like I'd come to your house, but I would never come from between Wallace and Morel.
Yeah.
And that turn was super scary. There's like 3 neighborhoods that they wedged back in there now, but they moved Nubbin Ridge, if you remember. Like it was almost an actual S shape where it was more than 90 degrees.
Oh yeah.
And then more than 90 degrees.
I remember riding the school bus and the school bus driver going over that crazy turn because it was like a crazy dip and turn.
Yeah.
They would literally lay on their horn because I guess it was pretty much like a blind turn and they had to take it, either just tight enough or just wide enough.
They're right. There's no way they're not staying. There's no way they're staying in their own lane because the bus is that long.
Right.
Well, it's like what was it, Gallagher, where Gallagher used to let out onto Westland. You come over the train tracks and it was like a 45-degree angle.
Oh yeah.
To get to that stop sign at the bottom of the hill there.
Yeah.
Super sketchy. I remember that. I remember when Ebenezer went over the train tracks at Gettysville, where that sawmill is. Like
it went over the railroad tracks now.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Where? On Ebenezer?
On Ebenezer. Before Ebenezer splits into North Peters, right?
All right.
So you're at that church where Westland comes in, right? So if you're coming from here, you go to Westland, you take a right onto Ebenezer, and you go into the tracks right now.
Right.
That used to go over the top.
No.
Yeah, it did.
No.
Okay. Then I imagined walking home from school one day because I missed the bus at Bearden High School. And walking...
Think of it a different way. Because the train tracks haven't moved. So no. you would have to have had...
They added the bridge and put the road underneath it. Unless it was a smaller bridge and it was going over the tracks for a while. Maybe that was part of the construction process to make that a bigger bridge.
Yeah, because the tracks have to stay level, for the whole kind of length of the track.
Yes.
So that track has been at that height for decades at least.
Yes.
So plausibly the road to go over that would have to be really tall, right? You'd have to make a big giant hill over it, and a hill has never been there.
I'm pretty sure. Yes, because I'm pretty sure where Peters and Ebenezer split, if you're coming back the other way, where they come together, it goes downhill to go under the tracks, and then stays level as you keep going south.
I might be picturing a different part.
Yeah, where that new storage building is. New, right. It's like 10 years old, but
right. Where old Ebenezer splits off.
Right. And then it has that big indoor storage unit thing right there on the corner.
Right.
That road level is almost level with the tracks, and the road goes down to go underneath. And it used to go flat, and then after it crossed the tracks, it came down. And they dug all that out. I promise.
Okay.
Promise.
All right.
Unless they were changed, unless it was something they were doing. I don't know. Either way, that was Knoxville's grown, and it's good. It's a good thing. It's good for Knoxville. It's good for parts and pieces, And this goes back to it's time for Metro people. Let's just go ahead and get it done.
You think them city and county folks gonna get along?
Nope. But it doesn't change the fact they don't need to get along. They just have to function. They have. It's just. I think
you would think more people in the county might be more behind that, because then they could start controlling the city more, because the county has more constituents.
It's tax. It's just a tax thing. I don't want to pay the city tax.
But I'm assuming if you had a metro, you would have to have more. Well, like even laws, you wouldn't necessarily have city ordinances and county ordinances.
Right.
It would all be one.
Right. Right. And I mean, what it is for the county people is they don't want, like, the city ordinances are more restrictive.
Right.
Technically you can't open. I don't want to start on this one. I'll go over this and we'll go into the depths. But in the city of Knoxville, you cannot open burn. Period.
Right.
In the county, you can with a permit and a whole bunch of bullshit. But you can use fire pits that have the little screen lids or whatever in the city and the county without a permit.
Huh.
But actually, I think in downtown proper, you can't even use a fire pit. Like if you have like a patio, I don't know. I'd have to look into that. I'm sure an apartment complex wouldn't let you, but if you live in Old North Knoxville, hit me up. I'm curious if you can have a little fire pit in your backyard. Okay, I'm going to do it. It enrages me. Right up here. So Morel is city. Both sides of Morel. Everybody that lives on Morel is city. There is a guy that lives on the corner of Morel and not Alki. It's the one past Alki, right across from the school, who has a big, like 6-foot fire pit. Like it's just like a ring of a ring of stones and stuff like that. It's not a fire pit where you have a lid and like actually it's not like an outdoor fireplace.
Right.
But it just sits there right out there on the street. Every time I drive by, I see that. And I go, that's illegal. Like every time I drive by it, I think about how illegal that is. It's kind of funny. It's adorable. There's an adorable little back and forth too, because that guy is a super Trumpy guy. He has Trump flags out. If he doesn't have them out now, he will have them out soon. And then his next door neighbor that's also on Morel has rainbow versions of every flag that you can think of that he puts out. And as far as I've seen so far, actually the person moved out of that house and somebody else moved into the rainbow flag house, but they kept the rainbow flags up and keep doing it. They just added solar panels too. Anyway, I've never seen if you were to believe the rhetoric, sometimes you'd think these people are like trying to kill each other at night, but so far they seem to be pretty decent neighbors. They just have completely different political views.
I guess when they moved out, I remember driving by a handful of times and seeing it was almost like an RC, like full like track thing. It's kind of set up.
Where?
At that house that had the flags.
Oh yeah, I could see
it. Was something. It was almost. It almost looked like a like little mini like little skate half ramp park or something. But I want to say it was.
They were riding their RC cars on it.
I want to say it was like an RC car thing.
That'd be fun.
It looked like they built a bunch of stuff. Like had a big shed.
Yeah, their garage is bigger than their house.
Yeah,
which is pretty awesome, I guess. I need to figure out some code and zoning stuff for here. I want to put a building in the yard. Move the studio out there. Then we don't have to worry about these damn kids.
Call your local liaison.
Yeah. I can look it up. There's a couple things I got to look up. I will. I think there's a problem, and this is weird. This is somewhat antithetical. No, it's not. It's actually 100% within my wheelhouse of things that I've complained about earlier. The offloading of city and county animal control to Young Williams was a mistake.
Think so?
Yes. It is a big old pile of bullshit.
Think it's overwhelming them, or it's just not working out for
apparently they didn't bring
county?
All the officers that were county or city animal control officers were not hired by Young Williams, so all those guys lost their jobs, like 2 or 4 of the 20-something total. And Young Williams is trying to operate it with less officers than it's functionally possible, is what part one. But apparently, just like a lot of things that piss me off, and this is why it does stay within mine, is the city-county in the agreement didn't put a bunch of fucking clear demands. It was literally just, okay, you're taking control, you take over for this, we're not doing it anymore. And that's it. Like, all the different like parameters of what they must do and how they must deal with situation X, Y, and Z. No like response time rules or anything like that. Just, you figure it out. See ya. We're done. And so, you know, while I am in general a proponent of offloading as many things as possible to privatization, because privatization should be better at it, you need to set some ground rules for it if you're going to do it that way. You can't just say you do it however you want to do it.
I don't know if it was just costing the city a bunch of money and they were just grateful to hand it off to somebody else.
I think that's part of it. I think that I think the city figured that they could spend the same amount of money or less to have it tended to and then not have the headache of it.
Right.
So it's like if it costs them $1 million a year, and well, city and county, excuse me. If
we're tired of chasing around raccoons and possums and trying to trap them all the time. They're like, let somebody else do that.
Right. I think county and city both said, all right, we've got this many officers that are dedicated to this. They cost X. We've got this other thing, and it costs Y. And even if we pay the same to Young Williams to do it for us, we don't have to deal with all the parts and pieces of it. Like, you know, how much does it cost HR for the city to manage 20 more employees? If they could take that off, that might drop in HR from the setup. So yeah, I'm not, you know, I'm a little upset by it because it's not easy to deal with. We've had an issue with a couple dogs running loose in the neighborhood for a while, and you know, call them and be like, hey, we got these dogs running loose. Well, did they bite somebody? I don't know. But I flat told the guy, like, I got a call from one of the agents. I was like, look, honestly, as far as I can tell, these dogs are okay. But I walk my dog, and my dog's not. My dog's on his leash, and I will tend to my dog. He's not loose running and attacking other dogs. But if those dogs come near mine, my dog will attack it. And I'm not going to be responsible for that because this guy won't keep him in his yard.
All right. And their response?
And, like, he called me back like a day, two days later, and said, this was the call center that I told. I don't know if I told him about that part of it, but I was like, hey, we got some dogs running loose. I don't know if they're dangerous or not, but you know, it's causing some issues. I believe that they got into it with one of my neighbor's dogs. I wasn't here to witness it, but that was what I was told by my wife, who was here. Then, like 2 days later, I get a call from whomever they sent out. He's like, hey, I'm blah 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 with whoever. I'm going to stop by and try to talk to that neighbor. Is this the address? And it's like, yeah. And I guess, you know, the dogs are in the yard, in the fence, and so he won't, like, he stops at the fence and, like, he can't knock on the door, because he's not going to go in the yard with these dogs that he doesn't know, other than there's been a complaint about him. Right. And so he's kind of walking around on the outside of the fence trying to get attention to the homeowner, who I don't think was actually there at the time.
So you thought he could not knock on the door?
Yeah, because the way this guy's fence is all the way around, all the way around the house.
Gotcha.
And so you have to go inside the fence to get to the house to knock on the door. There's no doorbell on the fence gate or anything.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he made contact with the homeowner or not. I know he came back a couple days later and did, finally. And the homeowner, you know, he went and put did a electric buried fence thingy. And so, you know, it has been fixed, but it was very unsatisfying I don't want to deal with this.
So the process worked?
Eventually.
Did Were you expecting more immediate results?
I mean,
like as soon as you called them, like 10 minutes later,
right? There are multiple dogs running loose.
The puppy patty wagon,
yeah,
and just haul them away.
Multiple dogs running loose, and we're not sure of the status and what's going to happen. I would think that I would at least get somebody that day, not 2 days later.
Well, you told him it wasn't dangerous.
I said I don't know if it is or not. I haven't seen anything. Well, it's the same thing when I tried to call him about my raccoon. Did it bite anybody? I don't know. It didn't bite me.
No, I mean, that's what ups the level of urgency in their minds. Because I'm sure they get lots of calls of like, hey, there's a dog wandering around.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. This is one of the things you make fun of me about, though, which is kind of funny.
What?
We have to wait for something bad to happen before we can interject. That is often my stance. You're right. I agree. We are both on the opposite side of an issue that we've made fun of each other.
No, I'm not saying you have to wait for something bad to happen. I'm trying to look at it logically, and their prioritization of calls.
It's not important until something bad happens. It's not top level.
No, it's not. No, you're misconstruing it.
I am, very intentionally, by the way. But yeah. So anyway, I don't know.
That sounds like they did everything.
It's like it's one of those.
Should.
Like I don't like to call 911 ever if I don't have to. If it's not emergent, like there is a building on fire, I don't call 911.
That's the whole point of it, right?
And so I go to I think I just searched Animal Control Knoxville, and I get like 50 like pest control companies and stuff like that pop up, and then I see City of Knoxville Animal Control. I click on it, and it gives me the number, and I call Young Williams, and nobody answers because this is on a Sunday. And it's like, if you have an animal control thing, like the voicemail that finally picks up, it's like if you're calling to report a missing animal, call this number. If you're calling to report loose animals or something like that, call this number. So I hang up, I call that number, no answer. And I've learned since that there's nobody in their call center on the weekends.
Hours, yeah.
Right. They run normal business hours for their call center. And it's like, that's, again, going back to the point of why I brought this up. Not because of my anecdotal story, but the reality here is it's like, okay, city, county, if you're going to hand off this duty to a private entity, one of the stipulations probably ought to have been you have to have somebody on call. You have to have somebody to answer the phone in case of an emergency.
At least similar services offered.
Right. You have to have an ability for the populace to get in touch with you to report an incident or report something that needs your attention because this is now your job.
Actually, I mean, I've been there before. I don't know if Animal Control had someone manning the phones 24/7.
Well, I mean, it went through dispatch, the non-emergency phone number.
Did it? Okay.
Which you still can, but then their contact, they go from there. Like, so it's
yeah, we tried to call them too. Nobody's answering.
Yeah, and I suppose they may have either a radio or a phone list on who's on duty, and they're calling people directly on their cell phones or their work phones or something like that, who the guys are on duty or whatever. But it's like, but then it shouldn't be listed that way. Then Young Williams should list it, call this number for Knox County Dispatch, and they will get somebody out there. But it's called this other number inside Young Williams, and there's nobody there either.
Can they outsource to pest control?
I mean, sure, why not? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they do, like, on some level.
Oh, yeah.
Which,
although... you've got a monitor lizard? Like, yeah, we're going to call somebody else that knows more about that.
Have you watched... Fox has a show that's it's supposed to be in Seattle, I think. It's pest control. Or animal control. It's supposed to be... It's like a sitcom of an animal control unit, and it's either Portland or Seattle is the setting.
I think I heard of it. And
that's kind of funny because, like, it is probably not too different than the regime that we're talking about. It's like probably a lot of the stories are true stories that they've conglomerated from animal controls all over the world, or at least all over the United States, where it's like, weird, alligator in a place, or, they go into a house and there's 500 cats because the lady died and she had a bunch of cats or whatever. Like, it's like all those stories. That's the premise for the show every episode. It's pretty fun.
I remember seeing some spit off the air, I think, for a little while. It was some very eclectic guy that ran a pest service, but he's wearing like much like black and has like spiky hair and glasses and like the was like the chain choker necklaces and a bunch of necklaces with
not sure if I
total like early 2000s. I can't think of the name.
I feel like I remember what you're talking about.
I think he's down in like Louisiana or Mississippi.
It could be fun. I do. I did go. I went to the special events office because I forgot to pay them for part of their services for our event. And,
Oopsie.
And they emailed me like, "Hey, we haven't got your check yet." Oh, I totally forgot you guys. I didn't lie to them. I was like, I totally forgot about it. I'll bring it by tomorrow. And it was Monday morning or Tuesday morning. I went down there. It's 9:00. Nobody in the office, but they're on the 6th floor of the city county building. Mm-hmm. It is would be a wonderful place for a little restaurant, maybe nice little bistro, because it's facing the river, and it's because it's that angled outside wall facing the river or whatever, and so it's 3 stories high. There's balconies up there for floor 7 and 8 or whatever. But it's the really nice sitting area with these nice couches and chairs. Somebody comes by and drops off the newspaper, so there's newspapers sitting on the coffee table. So I sat and read the newspaper for a little bit and waited for somebody to show up in their office. It got to about 9:30, and I was like, my meter's running out. So I wrapped it up in a piece of paper and slid it under the door. Okay. And then I emailed them, and I was like, hey, I left it. I slid it under the door. And a couple hours later, I get an email. Yeah, we got your check. Thank you. It's like, cool. But I was just kind of...
There's no hours of operation on their door or anything?
It said 9:00. They opened at 9.
Oh, okay.
But there's nobody in there till at least 9:30 when I left. And then we got on the elevator, and one of the guys from engineering who was just getting on the elevator is looking down, and one of the panels of the elevator had busted out. So there was like an inch gap between this wall panel and the door, so you could see the door sliding back in and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's cool. And we're all kind of looking at each other. It's like, hey, this is your department, bro. Rolled on out of there and got back to my car and drove by the spot where the crazy-ass apartment complex is going to go.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know, like I heard this is rumor mill stuff. I haven't heard officially, but it sounds like they're going to get the developer to change the plan, and now it's just going to be a big square brick building. So instead of that, it's not functionally, it's going to be about the same. It's going to be just as tall. Everybody's going to lose their view and stuff like that. It's just going to be a red brick building instead of that white, kind of chic-looking one. So, congratulations, city. You sure showed that developer what's what.
It's coming. All right, we'll put a different face on it.
Right, we'll just make it boring. So, but yeah, it's a gorgeous place to sit and read the newspaper at 9:00 on a Tuesday morning, just looking out over the river and enjoying that view.
Nice.
Yeah, but anyway, it was weird. Like I haven't been in the city county building during regular business hours. Like the last handful of times I've always gone for like meetings, which are, it's like 7:30 at night, and you only go in that front spot and go right to the big main assembly room.
I only went down there for a handful of like court things.
Yeah, I've been to 1 or 2 of those, but usually I'm going down there for some permitting. Like if I'm during business hours, it's some permitting or licensure issues that I'm going down there to deal with.
Right.
Sit down with, like we went down. Max and I went down there to sit down with engineering and have a whole conversation about our front door. Like spend an hour. Like, can we just leave the door? It's cool. It's historic. It makes it handicap accessible.
Did it get grandfathered in?
Nope. We had to cut it out, flip the hinges, and rehang it. And out of spite, I actually love this part. So we had to shave like an 1.25 inches off the door in the process. And so we shaved like 3/4 of an inch and 1/2 inch or whatever off each side. And so the outside edges of the door were raw. And so on the outside edge of the door, that when you open it, you can see it. Max's wife in Sharpie wrote, "This is ugly because the city sucks," or something like that on it. And I was like, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Sick it. Just get on them about it. But, whatever. Government workings are government workings. I've got a little government project. I'm trying to get the city to do something. And I'll keep you guys updated when I'm allowed to talk about it. Right now, it's a hush-hush. But I'm mad at I'm mad at like, again, to go back to the original point, it's that if we're going to entrust something to a third party, we need to put the stipulations on it and have some sort of mechanism to guarantee the work we required. And so far, at least as I understand it, there were no mechanisms put in place. Young Williams is free to do animal control however the fuck they feel like it. And if that ends up not being good for the constituency, I don't know what the process is for taking it back.
How much of this do you know for a fact?
All of what I've been talking about.
Gotcha. There is no requirements upon young lanes.
I don't know if it's zero, but of the functional stuff, no, there's not. There's not a lot of functional teeth stuff on it. This is sourced. I'm not telling you my source. Some of my city friends who I was talking about my city project, and then we ended up around the other rabbit hole, which is my favorite thing. I love it. It's one of my favorite things because I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like you sit here, like I could see myself 10 years ago sitting down in this same group of people and just kind of like wandering off in my mind because I have no idea who any of the people are that anybody's talking about or what they mean or what's going on, but I actually understand what's going on and I can contribute in my own way.
All right.
But yeah, we had a fun time. We were researching other Tennessee city ordinances on the topic and trying to figure out what the mechanism would be to change one here. But yeah, that's big stuff. Teachers got guns, budgets. We talked about that. $100 billion going overseas. That's the big national news story that we voted on, that our Congress voted on this week.
That's the total of the...
Yeah, like 60 whatever. Like 60 something to Ukraine, 30 something to... Yeah.
And Taiwan.
Yeah. Which, and then the TikTok ban somewhere deep down in that same thing. I just hate the process of that one. I'll set aside my disdain for, paying for foreign wars thing for a minute. The way they procedurally made that happen is as or more problematic to me than anything else.
Made what happen?
How the way that they stitched that together into an omnibus that basically made it unfunctional for people to not vote for it.
Is that a part of other packages?
No, like originally, like, okay, so like we go back to the whole McCarthy mess and him trying to get his speakership that first 15 rounds of voting or whatever. One of the concessions was the single member motion to vacate, and another one of those in there was to minimize or do away with or to make single item bills. Like we're not allowed to do any. It was supposed to be like the demand was that we wouldn't be doing these omnibuses where they're combining 5, 6, 7 bills together to force these different things through. That was one of the demands, and so McCarthy gets ousted. I don't know how much that part of the rule package stuck with when Mike Johnson came in, but that was one of the complaints.
I don't think there was anything else. It could definitely be wrong. I don't think there's anything else involved in it outside of foreign aid. I thought it was more just kind of like earmarking, or not earmarking, but I guess piggybacking on certain things. They're like, oh, here's an education bill, and we're throwing in like this other thing on top of it. So when you're like, hey,
that's the earmarking one. But omnibus is when you take what should be 3 or 4 separate bills and just shove them together into one.
Okay.
Because it's what especially from the Freedom Caucus side of it, but as well as some of the progressives, the Freedom Caucus side of it wanted it separate. Wanted Ukraine, specifically Ukraine and Israel, as separate packages,
right?
Because they did not want to vote for Ukraine, but they did want to vote for Israel, or the inverse. Yeah,
right.
And then there was a bunch of progressive caucus members who wanted to vote for Israel but didn't want to vote for Ukraine, or I'm sorry, wanted to vote for Ukraine but didn't want to vote for Israel.
Yeah,
and so what they ended up doing in this procedural mechanics is they shove them together, and so it's like, well, you're staunchly pro-Ukrainian war, whatever, and so you have to vote for this, even though you don't want to fund Israel.
Yeah,
or the inverse, and then they throw Taiwan and the TikTok ban in there, and so basically they just shove stuff together.
I don't think TikTok ban was a part of it.
It was, I know it was.
Okay,
and so it was those were the 4 majors. I think there was a handful of other stuff in it, but that was the big shiz. So I learned more about TikTok ban from the older one than I learned on the news coverage. I get more out of him from his influencers talking about it.
It's interesting how many people I hear about news they get from TikTok.
Right.
And they believe it more because it's more like personalized. They're like, oh, well, that's somebody that lives there, so I believe them.
There is a fine line in that, and I get it both ways.
I mean, my immediate thought is, okay, this is a TikTok person that's already famous enough to have a lot of people talk about them. So my immediate thought is they're doing or saying something just to clicks and get more people watching and saying them.
Sure. And I agree 100% on that one too. But then there are also people, I mean, like it's the kid version of Substack. I mean, what is Substack other than just independent people who call themselves journalists writing articles? And then you follow them. They're basically,
I don't know a lot about that.
You go like Substack. It's all written, and basically you can.
I thought some of the Substack was like actual journalists that just didn't get things published, and they were just
a lot of it is. Some of it like was it Glenn Greenwald? He used to like he was one of the original creators of one of the newer news organizations. God, what was it? I don't know. One of the newer, like not HuffPost. It's not HuffPost or Young Turks, but in that same kind of realm of like some of the newer media groups that came out since the internet, basically. Yeah. And like in some corporate hullabaloo, he kind of got taken out as a founding partner into just a journalist forum, and then some of the stuff that he was writing they didn't think was appropriate for their publication, which he created, and so they kicked him out. So he went and started Substack, and so like you can subscribe to people in Substack, and you can pay like a nickel or a dime per article, or you can follow them and pay like $5 a month and get all their work and stuff like that. So that's how Substack works. It's a user feed version of TikTok, but most of the people on there functionally are either professional journalists or trying to be or something like that. But it's the same idea. Like there's no Substack itself does no curating in the sense that we guarantee this person is telling you the truth. But they're people that are out, and some of them are like true journalists where they go and they hunt a story, and some of them are just reporting on what's happening around them because they live in DC or they live in, I think Glenn Greenwald's in Argentina or something like that now. He's in a little bit of political hiding from us, I think is what's going on with him. That's a weird long. I've heard reference on him 1,000 times. I don't know much of his direct work. He's been a guest on a couple of the podcasts I listen to. But anyway, yeah, the TikTok ban. I don't know. Like I go back and forth. Like there's part of me that's like, I don't know. Like I don't like. I think there's a fair trade aspect of it that is not why they did the ban, but it gets the right result for me, so I'm kind of okay with it.
Well, it's funny because a lot of people a lot of politicians that were for banning TikTok, but at the same time, they have their own TikToks because apparently, like the White House or whatever, just got on TikTok like 6 months to a year ago.
I mean, it's a way to reach younger
like
voters.
Legislators that are like, we need to get away from TikTok. It's owned by the Chinese government or whatever.
Right. And I don't necessarily disagree with that premise. Is like, and we've argued it a couple times on here. There is a functional difference to me of my right to privacy with regards a user agreement with a private company versus my rights to privacy in the state.
Right.
And so like I feel like if the owner of the company is at least in part the Chinese Communist government, I don't trust my privacy with them. I don't really trust my privacy with anybody, but that's a different animal of it's not just a company that has my data, it's the Chinese government that has my data by right. Because I signed up.
And I'm trying to look a little into that. So some people are like, oh, well, the owner is Taiwanese. And it's like, okay, well, that's like that's the CEO. But what I've heard is like their headquarters is actually in Beijing.
Right. And like 57% or whatever of ByteDance, which is their parent company, is owned by the Chinese Communist Party.
No.
Which is, I mean, that's normal for business in China. Like you're not allowed to do business in China without China having some ownership in your company.
Gotcha.
Which it's kind of, and that's kind of what the U.S. is asking for. It's like, okay, TikTok can exist and you can keep running it, but it has to be owned by a U.S. company if you're going to keep doing it in here. They have to divest by a date, is what the actual bill says. But they're like, to me, not that Facebook or X or any of those are any better, functionally any cleaner about their data security or anything like that. But there's a fairness part of it in me that's like, well, China doesn't let X and Facebook and Twitter. Well, I said that twice, but there's no Facebook in China.
All right.
Because China won't let them in because Zuckerberg refuses to sell them a portion of his company. And it's like, well, if they're not going to let our companies function in their markets, why should we let their companies function in ours?
Right.
And so there's part of me that like kind of likes it for that aspect of it. It's like, let's just play fair. Let our people in, we'll let your people in, and we'll all work together, and we'll all make millions or whatever it is that we're going to do with our businesses.
I mean, there's that level of governance that you have with an American-owned company that...
Right. We have the ability to do something about a problem.
Like, hey, you're an American company, you're traded on the stock market.
You're subject to our laws.
Right.
And our laws can change.
Right.
Our laws can change to fix a problem that we see that you guys are doing. We can't do that with China.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And so, like, I kind of get it. But at the same time, like, it's like, I don't know. The argument's been made. I don't know. I kind of believe it, but I'm kind of on the fence on it, is that part of the reason why it's happening now is because the argument is being made, at least, that, like, all these campus protests and stuff are from these stupid kids who got all their information off of TikTok and it's
is that the new theory?
It's TikTok teaching these children that the Jews are bad. Like, it's literally an anti-Semitic trope at this point, that TikTok is what's letting all these kids see how awful Israel is.
Because that's the only thing that the young kids are
right.
watching these days.
And it doesn't address whether or not Israel is actually being awful in what they're doing or not. It's just saying that they're against Israel because of what TikTok's telling them. Yeah. And there is at least argument that that's part of why this is going through. And since the U.S. government is so pro-Israel, we have to stop anybody from talking shit about Israel and teach our kids that Israel's bad.
It's always sad when I see stories of like the EU having these I think I did just see some of the U.S. kind of amending their net neutrality laws. But as far as like just kind of internet privacy, I keep seeing like more and more of like the EU pushing back and kind of getting back more of internet privacy. But the Americans are like, no, we're not really worried about that. I don't
know. It is a scary prospect with what's happening, I think. I mean, I agree. There needs to be,
like I said, it's always crazy when these like AI companies, people that are developing this stuff, and they're like, hey, we need to be careful of this. It's like, well, you came up with this, right?
Right. We're not sure what we're doing.
Yeah. It's kind of growing faster. It's going sentient.
Yeah. And that, I mean, not even the AI part, but yes, I mean, that's like, it's perfectly within the realm. Like, like I've seen, there is I made a joke about it, like one of my stupid phone games that, it's like an ad derived game. So I play around and then I have to watch an ad and play around.
Right.
And there's like this AI girlfriend game. And it's like you can like it's like in the ad, like it presents itself. It's like build your own girlfriend, basically. Tell us what you want her to look like, and they'll produce it. And it's these AI pictures of these girls, and some of them are weird and like fucking furries, and they have tails and cat ears and whatever. But like some of them are like, okay, if you put that in front of me and said this was a real person with a filter on Snapchat, I would say okay. Now it's not a real it's not a real picture of a person.
Right.
Because it's definitely got a little bit of that like cartoony thing that they do and the lighting things that they do in some of those filters. But like I've seen filtered pictures of real people that are equatable to these AI productions.
Yeah.
And so they'll produce this girl for you and then you can talk to her.
Yeah, but that is a growing market for, just for lonely people.
Yeah.
And I get it. Having some kind of connection.
I'm sure it sells like fucking crazy.
They even know, that it's computer generated, but at the same time, they're getting this kind of back and forth.
Yeah. And it's like how long, if not already, until we don't know who we're interacting with on certain things.
All right.
Like I've had like it's AT&T or one of them when I was on their chat thing because I was having some service issues and I was trying to use their website chat thing. And honestly, there's been a couple things that I've had whole conversations with, like some troubleshooting, and I don't know if it's a real person or not.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do an answer in a weird thing, and then it'll be like, I don't understand what you're saying. And it's like, the way you...
Are you real?
Right. The way you said I don't understand that sounds like you don't understand humans. Because it was like, I often text and type like I speak, which isn't really functionally correct. Like if you get down to like the grammars and stuff like that. And so I could see how that might confuse a computer.
So I still try to go back with that thought in mind and like speak very basically. Like I'm pretty sure this is like AI, so I can't throw in like weird grammar and run on sentences and then be able to understand the question I'm trying to ask.
But yeah, so it's like I don't know. Like that concerns me. That premise by itself concerns me. Not in the weird sexual way or the what it's going to do to my kids sort of way or whatever it is. Just in the direct, like I don't know if I've had long conversations about a particular topic with a robot or not.
Right.
Like I don't know that. and the like a still picture is close enough, and voice is getting pretty close, where it's now getting to where I don't know if I'm talking to a real person or not sometimes.
I'm trying to remember, I saw a story recently. It was a major city, it might have been New York, that they went to using AI for, it was like kind of like civil service kind of phone number where you can call and be like, hey, who do I need to contact to get a permit to have a block party or whatever. But they were giving information, but it wasn't factual information.
Right.
They were giving like very accurate information as to what they needed to do, like the process of applying for a permit for this, and you need to do this, and you need to go down to this building and get the okay from this person.
But it was just giving them answers that weren't true, but sounded functional.
Right.
Yeah, that's fucked.
So that's what I'm worried about, is kind of using the AI for, just like doctor's offices using it for their appointment and scheduling.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then
like random things that they're...
Well, and then you have these AIs running into each other, which is another weird one, because like you have your spam email blockers, and like I had an issue with where it was an AI calendar service that a company I was interested in was used to set up an appointment. So I set up an appointment. It was supposed to be a Zoom call, and I got a text reminding me that the Zoom call was coming up, but I never got I never got the email on where to log into the Zoom call, because my AI spam filter recognized that it was a computer trying to email me and blocked it, and it was in my trash folder. And at the time, I didn't think to look, and ended up writing an angry email about,
you guys never contacted me.
You guys never got a hold of me. I mean, and to be fair, for the company out there, you've lost my business because of this situation.
Right.
Because I don't, it's like, I understand it from your perspective. It's an easy way to streamline your ability to make these contacts and start these conversations. But it's like, I need somebody to talk to about this certain thing that I'm trying to do with my business. And I want a service like yours. And you've proven to me that it's hard to work with you, right, because of the method of which you go about it. So I'm not going to, I'm going to go find somebody else to do the task that I'm asking. But yeah,
I think the AI is definitely worrying, and I guess it's a good thing that there is some kind of hesitation in a lot of industries, and a little bit of hesitation, but I think a lot of people are trying to jump into it just to be on that cutting edge of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're using AI in like medical imaging, trying to determine if, an X-ray or whatever sees something good or bad, which can be good. There is the human error that happens from time to time.
Right.
But you can also have that same thing from AI.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I see a little shadowy area there. Like, that's probably this.
Right.
And it's like, oh, well, the AI just diagnosed you as having this, so we've already going to run some tests. And it's like, well, no. If you had a human look at that, they would have seen that, no, that was just a X-ray anomaly.
Right. There was a fold in your T-shirt over that you were wearing while you were getting the X-ray, not a cancer cluster or whatever.
But I mean, AI is used in like application processes for many companies.
Yeah,
it's becoming more commonplace, I would say, than someone actually looking over at actual, even just a digital application going through.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's one of those that's going to be. It's going to get more. I think it's going to get more and more intrusive over time too.
I mean, they use it in. I think they use it in college admissions as well.
I mean, the question always is, what's the end? Like that's what I keep getting lost in when it's like, because some of it it makes sense. A lot of it makes sense that if it works well,
I mean, it's in the goal of making things better and easier.
The goal, sure, if that's their stated goal, I guess, in creation of it, but like.
I mean, you could think in some applications, as far as employment or college, maybe it can be an unbiased view of an application.
Yeah, you don't tell it
it's like you don't have a machine with
you don't tell it you're a trans black person,
and
then they can't even subconsciously discriminate against you for your trans blackness,
right?
Or they can, because when they do their web crawl and scour the internet for how much trans hate there is out there on the internet, and it responds with some hateful email about how you're not going to get the job here because you're whatever, because it got stuck in some weird Twitter rabbit hole on trans hate, and that's the persona it took on accident because of the way the AI works. that could be problematic. But I don't know. But again, it's like to what end? To what end in the broader sense? Being it's okay. We make this easier or make that easier. Okay, so like dealing with government services it makes it more streamlined and easy, which inherently means over time you're employing less people, which would make the government cheaper to operate, which I would be generally on board with that idea. But then we're doing it with all these companies, and now we don't have, we have half the employment at all these different companies because they've taken AI over. AI has taken over half the 3/4 of the jobs that companies do, that these employees used to do.
Right.
Well, what are we doing for work? Because at the end of the day, maybe the company drops their prices because it's so much cheaper for them to produce whatever it is they do now. Maybe. That's why I said maybe really strongly. Even just for the sake of conversation, let's say they do.
Right.
Okay, well, whatever costs 10% of what it did before, I still don't have a job. So 10% of what it used to be is still more than I can afford. So what are we doing? Like, what are we going to do with our lives as worker bees, for lack of a better word?
An IT professional,
right? You've got to be smart enough to understand the AI to be able to fix it when it gets wonky. And it's like that's still a small pool of people, even when we get there. Like some of the stuff, like I don't know, I'm certain robotics will catch up eventually, and so like even the stuff that's right now safe from AI, being like functional, skill-based labor, plumber, carpenter, that kind of stuff, at least for now, is protected from AI as employments. But I mean, hell, we can't all be carpenters either.
It's not hard to find videos that take you step by step on how to do certain tasks.
Right, but again, for employment's sake, okay, fine. Like I was a software engineer with Blizzard. I used to help create video games. I am tech savvy, but AI is now making all the video games off of a very basic prompt from 2 people on the top level of the company. Right, and so hundreds of employees that used to do all the coding and all the different detail work that it was to produce a game are now unemployed.
Make a pretty landscape. Okay,
right. Done. Right, and so, so again, but my point being, it's like, I mean, how many jobs is AI going to take over time? And it's got to be a lot.
I know it's limited.
I don't think so. I really don't. Because like I said, I think robotics has got a little ways to go to catch up. But I mean, hell, if you're an engineer in a robotics factory or in a robotics firm where you're making robotics and now you're bringing AI in to help you with the engineering, and you're making robots that can now do some basic plumbing tasks, where the plumbing company is now just a guy that carries a box in and sets it in front of your sink, and the box opens up and the robot arms come out and fix it and put it back together. Goes back in the box, and now you're not even a functional plumber anymore. You're just a guy that delivers the box. I mean, like there's a business idea out there for you. When the tech gets there, you'll have Amazon plumbers, which you go on Amazon, you order a plumber, and it will come and get delivered by the FedEx drone on your front porch.
He just watches to make sure he doesn't rip off your cabinet doors.
Not even that, I'm saying skip that. Forget that guy. We do it through Amazon. It gets delivered by the FedEx drone that Amazon's using to your front door. You go outside, you pick up the box, you set it in your kitchen. You set it in your kitchen, you open the box, and you tell it you have you verbally speak out the words, "I have a leak at this sink," and the little box and machine and all the parts would start poking around and figure out where the problem is. Put the new piece of pipe in, rebox itself. You seal the box shut, put it on your front porch. The FedEx drone comes and picks it up again. And it's gone.
Yeah, I don't think we're close to that.
I don't think we're close to that, but I don't think it's that far off either. I really don't. Like functionally, of that ridiculousness, each individual part is almost already there. We have drone delivery service right here in Knoxville currently.
Do we?
Well, it's wheeled drones, but down on campus they got the food delivery scooter thingies.
I've heard about the food delivery, yeah.
So we already have that. So we already have parts and pieces of it functional. I would say that there's some robotics lab out there that's working on a diagnosing plumbing robot that can be set down in front of a plumbing situation and figure out what the problem is and fix it, with maybe some prompting from the plumber engineer on staff. Yeah, but can get kind of close to doing it on its own. I mean, I think we're close on a lot of the parts and pieces of it. I don't think it's that far off. But again, it goes back to the core question. It's like, what are we doing then? how do I afford to buy, or how do I afford to keep my Amazon account open so that I can order my Amazon plumber? Bezos, this is my idea. It's on the record right now. If you have delivery, because I mean they're doing prescription deliveries now.
Heard about that, yeah.
They bought Whole Foods, and so they do food delivery, and it's not in this market yet. I'm assuming Knoxville will get on board sooner than later, but they do fresh food delivery market stuff through Amazon now. You can
did see a little thing about that the other day with food service companies, send you like fresh, ready to cook meals or whatever, and then how pretty much the subscription dies off within 6 to 9 months.
Really, I did see something about
as far as they're kind of like reliant upon the newer customers constantly coming in, simply because within about a year, I mean, it's like 80%.
You get bored. You got to get bored with the options.
Well, some of it's they go for the initial savings. You get a coupon for like $200 off,
right,
when you sign up for a year or whatever. And then after that year thing is over, they're like, okay, yeah, I don't need this anymore.
Right. Yeah, I've looked at some of them, not in the full meal ones, but there's some meat ones that do like it's like a farm fresh meats, where you can get like a monthly delivery of pork and chicken and whatever.
Right. Yeah, I see all these everything when we talk about the economy being shitty. I'm like, who are they marketing this to?
I don't. Well, like we,
I think commercials nowadays they're just marketing towards the affluent.
Yeah, and we have them here, and I don't know what they do, but they're here because like I was at the missus and her mom and brother were yard sailing this morning, and they're going down to Von Orr for some special. There's a nursery of some sort down there that they like that has a very specific plant. Or plants that they do that they always go. It's an annual thing. They do it all the time. Okay. So anyway, they're on their way to the town and they're stopping through and just again go down here on North Shore, past Pope's. You know where the little duck blind is, where the lake comes up and it's where the lake ends. And it's like
a marshy area.
Yeah, if it's been rainy, it's underwater. If it's been dry, if it's not raining in a while, it's at least muddy or maybe even dry. Right. And there's that little duck house.
Yeah,
right across the street from there. That neighborhood went into there because that's where they bought some stuff and they needed me to pick it up in the truck.
Yeah,
it's a nice neighborhood.
Whittington Creek.
Yeah, I have no desire to live in that neighborhood. It's the same thing about every other one of these new developments out there. It's big, nice houses on tiny ass pieces of land. Like you're in your window, you're looking straight across a 20-foot gap maybe into your neighbor's window. Not my type of neighborhood, but very nice, very well manicured, like big tree-lined main street that goes up into the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago I got pulled over by, I guess it was like a neighborhood security or whatever. It was still being built. I mean, they had the roads, but they just pretty much had the parcels of land, and we were just kind of cruising around.
I think I was in there. I think I was
half-bit houses.
I do remember we used to go up there to do bad things.
It was like a weird, like little, shining like orange lights. I knew it wasn't police lights. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, what are you guys doing here? I'm like, yeah, we're just cruising around.
Try to stay off the public roads, bro.
Yeah.
Try to stay where it's a little less traffic. I'm still learning how to drive.
Seeing what you guys are building back here. Like, what is all this bullshit?
But yeah, like that's there are definitely some people that are working in Knoxville that make some good fucking money.
Yeah.
Or have some really, really big debt.
I mean, I always have the wonder when I watch commercials that I'm like, who is this advertising to?
What do you mean, like Boing commercials on NBC?
No, just like general stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of the commercials I see. I don't see a lot of commercials. I'm pretty fast on the mute button or the fast forward if I can.
Yeah.
But like when we're watching, I mean, it is unbelievable because we religiously watch Jeopardy every night. And like, I'll come settle down and I'll turn Wheel on, but not really watch it. I'll kind of do some poke around on my computer. Just got to have Wheel on in the background. All that is drug commercials. It's all some,
right.
Look how great your life could be. Side effects include everything that you'd never want to have to deal with in the rest of your life. But
well, I mean, you think about come Christmas time, you've got all like it's all like the Lexus and Mercedes, like sales to remember, and it's just beautiful modern house, and the wife comes out, she's got a big bow on her brand new car,
C-Class.
And I'm just like, Who's this advertising to? Like,
So I
are
don't
there
know if that
many
person-
rich people out there?
I mean, I think that person exists that would buy it for a gift, but I don't think that's really the way that commercial's supposed. Like, I think that's just the guise of the commercial. I think it's like, you want to buy a Lexus, and we have a Christmas sale.
Right.
Not that you're going to secretly buy a Lexus for your spouse. Like, there's a Chevy truck commercial that's really funny.
Well, no, but I mean, most people would not be able to afford a new Lexus.
I mean, I don't know. We could go down to the dealership and see how many they move a day. There's plenty of them getting moved.
I'd say they probably sell more used than new.
I don't know how dealership finances work, so I couldn't say where they make their money.
And then somebody was telling me about, I want to say it was like the newer Corvettes, that a majority in town are all leases. Like, nobody actually owns most of the Corvettes that are driving around town, as far as like the brand new ones.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, those Broncos. There's like 50 gajillion of the new Broncos. There's like
I mean, some of that's just in the marketing. I mean, you go into a new dealership, and they run your finances. They're like, I don't know if we can finance your new car, but like, hey, we got this lease program.
Sure.
We're not really going to tell you that you will never own this car, and you will pay us to be able to drive around this car with.
Well, I mean, it's like I got
mileage restriction.
I got a letter this week from Toyota in Knoxville. It's like, hey, your 2001 4Runner, it's getting kind of old. Come in and get you a 2004 and pay $72 more a month for 2 additional years than what you're already paying on it or whatever. But it's like, like that's a big scheme that's a big lot scheme that they do is where
Right.
they,
So
because then they
we'll
turn
get
around
you
and sell mine as used and make a bunch of money off of it.
Right. Yeah, I know a lot of people that have gone into like buy cars, but they were already, underwater on that previous car. They're just like, well, we can just roll this into new payments. You only pay like $5 more, but you'll have a new car.
Yeah.
But you don't really think about, you don't look at the long term of how long how much longer you've got to pay that off versus interest that you're paying into it.
Right.
Now that they've got you into a new payment plan, like, yes, your payments are only $5 more a year,
Right.
but
I think
you've got two less years that you've been paying into this already.
Right. So you're 4 years into a 5-year car loan.
We just signed you into a new 6-year program.
Right. We signed you into a 6-year one that's going to roll in that last year that you already owed plus all the new that you're going to pay over time.
Right.
I mean, my mother-in-law fell for that. They bought a new Nissan or they traded in their Nissan that way.
Yeah.
And, and honestly, it's not the worst functionally. Like, if I gave a shit, like, if I really, like, there's no functional, it's not a new model. It's not a new version of the 4Runner. It's just it is just a new version of the 4Runner. They didn't do any design changes or anything like that. Like, every once in a while, they have the major design changes of a car series.
All right.
But, like, this one wasn't like, for all intents and purposes, if I got a 25 out there in the driveway and you pulled up today, you wouldn't know that, like, you probably wouldn't even notice. If it was the same color scheme,
all right,
probably like, okay, whatever. And I'd be like, hey, did you see my new car?
Yeah.
No. It's the
shinier.
Yeah, it's the new one with the new tires. But, so I do need to get new tires on the 4Runner, thinking about that. Anyway, I could see, if I wanted the new one, then I could see it as a functional thing. But, the way they sell it's just like, yeah, keeping up with the Joneses. Have the new pretty one instead of the old.
Right. That's something they live on, or they kind of rely upon, is that kind of desire for having the newer one.
Right. But to answer your original question, no, I don't know who these people are that have this kind of fucking money that these ads make sense for.
I mean, you're just like high-end colognes and perfumes, and just a lot of the commercials I see are like for high-end stuff outside of laundry detergents and whatnot.
Right.
And I'm like,
I think it depends on what you're watching too, because I think one of the things, and even on internet stuff too, because it's one of the things I've been thinking about is it's like I live in podcasts. Like that's all I listen to when I'm driving around, or podcasts. I'd be doing the dishes listening to a podcast, or even on the music side, if I'm listening to Spotify and I'm doing the ad version because I don't pay for Spotify or whatever, or Pandora or whatever. It's like companies can't afford to advertise them unless you're at a certain level. You can't afford I would love to be an ad read on Joe Rogan, and it would probably net some serious. Well, no, it couldn't net serious sales increase for me because I'm a local company. Like, I don't know. I'm sure the data's out there that they could engineer and figure out how many people in Knoxville listen to Rogan regularly, and I could do the math on whether it's worth it or not. But I would literally have to do what I'm paying for is the 5 million ears an episode that he gets to run my ad on, but I'm only actually getting maybe 200,000 there's no way 200,000 people in Knoxville listen to it. Anyway, maybe 10,000 people in Knoxville that regularly listen to them that could potentially be my customer.
Right.
So to advertise on YouTube, YouTube's a little better because you can actually demographically block it, so it only goes into a certain demographic.
Right, yeah. Targeted advertising.
Yeah, it goes into a certain region or stuff like that. But at some point, like you have to have an expertise in working the system to make it valuable to you if you're not a national company. Or like, NBC Nightly News, it's like you've got to be a company, you have to be available everywhere. Like Target can do an ad on NBC. I can't.
Right.
Because I can't afford it because it has to, the mathematical sense you have to do to say, okay, I'm going to spend, I don't know, what's a Super Bowl ad, a couple $1 million nowadays?
Pretty much.
But you're getting X number of people around the world seeing your ad. Well, sure, but if only a tiny percentage of that people can actually purchase your product because you're a local company, it doesn't do you any good. So yeah, I don't know. Like but to go back to your original question, I don't know who these people are that have that kind of money. Realistically, that there are enough people to facilitate that. I don't understand some levels of marketing.
That's what I was about to say. I've probably said it on here a number of times that I watch a lot of commercials and I'm like, who is this marketing to? Like this doesn't make me want to buy this. Like, who is this convincing to buy this thing?
Yeah, I agree because it's weird.
Like, did this just like slip through focus groups and that focus group was like, yeah, it's great. Yeah, I really want to buy that thing now.
But again, I think on some of the higher end products, the question is how many of these do we need to sell to make this marketing worth it?
Right.
And when it's a Lexus,
I mean, they're marketing to people that have the money too.
Right. And but that's what I'm saying. Like when it's a Lexus or something like that, you only need to sell 10,000 to cover the cost of doing that marketing run and all the other parts and pieces that get it to the floor. Where, if you're doing fidget spinners, you'd have to sell 100 million of them or whatever it is to make it worthwhile. So there's math, there's some scientific math to the process of it, but like, I don't the rules of marketing is just people know your name and know what you do.
Right.
And it's not necessarily that your ad itself is like, yes, you do a special or whatever that you're doing your ad for, but it's really just, that's the place I go to get these things and they have these things. And for whatever reason, their ad makes me feel good about that brand.
Right. Well, I mean, even annoying ads can just get that brand name in your
head.
Head
On, remember the Head On commercials?
No.
There was an old promo. That was a promotion they did on Jeopardy years ago. It was like right after Final Jeopardy. It's like this. It was this topical headache cream that you rubbed on your forehead to attack your headache or whatever.
What were the commercials for those? Yeah.
But the commercials, Head On. And it was like right after Jeopardy was over, which, depending on how the round to Jeopardy went, I might have had a little headache because it made me think real hard. Head On. Right. Head On. It's like, damn, you're going to give me a headache with your commercials, so now I'm going to need your product because you're so aggressive with saying your name.
I think Lee's been like one of their sponsors for Final Jeopardy for a while.
Yeah. Finally, they're back to normal Jeopardy episodes. It's not a tournament. It's been a tournament all year.
Really?
They've been just tournament after tournament after tournament, and then somewhere here, like I think last week was the first full week, and then the week before, half the week was finishing a tournament, and then they went to regular episodes.
Do they have a full-time host officially yet?
It's Ken Jennings.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know, there's some weirdism, like apparently some of the weirdism about why they were doing tournaments this year and why Mayim hasn't been on the show at all this year was stuff to do with the writers and actor strike, because Ken Jennings is not an actor. He's not part of the guild. And so he didn't, but the writers that wrote for the show were part of the guild. And so apparently they were recycling some questions. And as a way to not feel guilty about recycling questions, they were recycling contestants.
Okay.
And so it's like, old contestants, old questions. Like, I don't know. I've heard different kind of stories about why they did all that. Like, we were posturing that there was just no smart people left. And they were having a hard time fielding, having enough people to come be on the show that were good enough to make it worthwhile to watch. Although Ike whatever, he won
Turner?
No. He's an actor, comedian actor. He won the celebrity tournament.
I don't know.
He won the celebrity tournament, and as a winner of the celebrity tournament, like as $1 million went to his charity of choice, but he also got a seat in one of these other tournaments and actually did pretty well, like against normal people. So it wasn't like the SNL, like he wasn't like an SNL candidate for Celebrity Jeopardy. Like he was actually pretty good.
Right.
There were a couple of really good players, like functionally good players. And the questions, they do dumb down the questions a little bit for Celebrity Jeopardy.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't super easy. Like I enjoyed it. Like it was on my level. I'm not like when they get deep in these tournaments and have these like super geniuses on and stuff, some of the questions start getting real hard.
Yeah.
But like there's some stuff it's just like, they get into like opera and it's like, I don't know. I just like that category is just a no-go for me. I don't know my operas and I don't know my non-Shakespearean plays, and like there's just some categories that are just like from the start, it's like handle.
I'm screwed.
Yeah, I like there's two people that I know that might have written an opera, and I'll just guess them for everyone, and maybe if I'm lucky they'll put one of those.
Puccini.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Okay.
Pavarotti.
Is this one Puccini?
I don't know, some Italian sounding bullshit. Yeah.
La Bohème.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm glad regular Jeopardy's back. It's fun, but yeah, we went deep in the TikTok thing, but going back to the this big omnibus bill, like I don't function like it still falls under the whole set of shit I don't get. Like actually, to me, in actual like self-interest version of it, Taiwan's the one that makes the most sense to care about, but gets the least in the funding assistance. I guess they're not actively at war, but
right.
If excuse me again, if China pulled a Russia-like act on Taiwan like Russia did with Ukraine, that would have a significant functional impact on our day-to-day lives. So that one makes sense to be supportive of way more than either of the other two. But it doesn't make sense that it was one. I don't understand how we afford it. Full stop.
Raw goods that are coming out of both areas.
Israel?
Not so much Israel. Ukraine.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I on the world stage, yes, I understand that it's the world's breadbasket. At least it was. I'm sure it's just now minefields and
Taiwan. I believe was a hotbed for like semiconductors.
Yes. And that would be a functionally big deal for our general economy here.
We've already admitted that we're short of.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes back into, when we talk about, what we want to teach our kids and what we should be teaching. We don't want to push them too much, but at the same time, like, we need to set them up for the ability to have, people of much higher learning.
What?
Huh?
I did not understand that sentence.
And we've talked about, what kids should learn in school.
Mm-hmm.
And later in life, we want them to be able to produce for America. Without higher level engineering, science, medical. Outside of that, coming through with these breakthrough or having, breakthrough discoveries.
Right. The preparation for the ability to be a supreme master at a certain thing. Like
not necessarily the supreme master, but I mean
the ability to innovate,
holding our own
right.
Among the international stage.
The ability to create and innovate on a level to compete on an international stage.
Because we have the higher level education, because many people from other countries come here to go to Harvard Medical School,
right? MIT,
right?
Whatever. Yes. I mean, yeah, I agree. I don't know. I mean, yeah. Right. So the ability to learn is really what you're kind of getting at, like the ability and understanding that the need to be able to learn and execute on what you're learning. Well, the ability to learn so that you can go on to higher education to learn a more particular
to
skill set.
To set our youth and our up and coming citizens for the possibility of being great people for us.
Sure. I'm trying to. I mean, I get the broad outlines, kind of what you're getting at. But I think that in and of itself is such a hazy goal. Because how do you, like, I mean, because I think, full, like, the easy full stop is like, okay, so what's your definition of or whatever, but it's like, you know, because, like, to me, I think at least from functionally on the show, is be like, you know, civic engagement is a big fucking deal to me, and we don't really teach that very well. But I think to have a good, productive adult civic engagement and how to engage with your government and how to be involved in the process of governance would be something I would think that I would argue that is important for a good, well-rounded citizen on the other side.
Definitely.
But I could certainly see plenty of people arguing the inverse. That's a waste of time. We need to be teaching them functional skills like engineering or software design or, you know, code building and stuff like that, because that's the jobs that are going to exist on the other side. Like, you know, only so many people can be in politics professionally. So what good is it to be civically engaged if you're going to be out there, you know, being a plumber? Like, to the average plumber, what does it matter?
I would like to think that we would still expect civic engagement from plumbers.
I would, but I don't think we do at large. I don't think our political,
you're a plumber, you don't need to vote.
I don't think our political class gives a shit. I mean, that's why they narrow them down into this blue collar, white collar subclasses, and you know, and we stratify it in the way that it's just like, you know, blue collars care about this thing, and that's why blue collar people vote for Democrats, or blue collar people are all racist, and that's why they vote for Trump. And it's like, well,
can't be both.
I don't know why they vote, to be honest. I don't know what, like, that is the highest curiosity for me, that I don't know how you could functionally do a real study on, like, what gets people to vote, what keeps people from voting, like, where are the numbers at. Like, because I think you're right. It's something that you said before. Is I think people are intimidated by the idea. They don't know enough. They don't feel like they know enough that their opinion ought be put into play.
That wasn't me. That was my idea. But
I know, but I'm just saying. I think you're correct in that statement, in that people go, I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they're doing or what they're going to do. So I'm just going to stay out.
Right.
I don't know enough to vote, which I kind of agree.
They know that they don't know enough to make that, you know, what could be a consequential vote.
Right. But then inversely, you have this whole set of people that they just vote because it's voting day. It's like, well, that's as bad a reason to vote as their reason not to vote.
That's what I'm supposed to go do.
Right. It's election day. I got to vote.
Right.
Who are you voting for? I'm voting for this guy. Why? Because he's a Republican. What's that mean?
I saw a bunch of signs out there.
Right. He had the prettiest signs. You know, but again, it's to me, that is the, I don't know. I don't understand. Like, I understand as a kid. Like, I think I've probably run the most generic process in election involvement of that there is that, you know, I voted a few times. I think I voted every presidential election in my lifetime. I think, or most of them. But really didn't pay attention to local, didn't really do any of that until we started this a couple of years ago. But I think that's fairly normal. I think most people don't really pay that much attention, don't care that much, only vote for the ones that they see on the news all the time, which is the big federal races and stuff like that. Right. Don't understand who does what and what their job actually is and what they're voting for and all that kind of stuff. And then maybe as they get older, they start getting a little bit more informed, whether that's by accident because of their peer circles or intentionally because they want to know more. And they want to be more involved, and they want more input. And then you realize that there's so few people involved that you jump in and you actually do have input.
Yeah.
Because nobody pays attention.
I think there's some level of expectation at the local level that those that are voting are people that, you know, are more, or that do have their ears to the ground a little bit more so than others. So there's that kind of level of like, well, maybe I shouldn't go to vote. Like, you know, the people that do go out and vote normally, you know, are keeping up with what's going on,
right? But
locally, but I haven't kept up with it.
Right. My return for that is just because they've kept up with it doesn't mean their opinions on it are more right than yours.
Right. I'm not saying it's
right.
I'm not saying it's a correct assumption.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Full stop. I'm just saying, like, that's like I could make the argument for or against anybody for any reason voting or not voting. Like, I could easily make that argument. And it's just, like my ideal voter is informed, intelligent, and maybe not even that intelligent, but at least informed on the function. Because I would even argue that those people that we're referencing, those people that are, they have their ear more to the ground people, that I would argue that a lot of them that I've met don't know how it works, and they're in it and they're part of it. They're out campaigning for people, and it's like, again, like I could throw 1,000 examples out. Fucking door knockers coming in here talking to me, like what's his face, Herrera's door knocker, fucking kid's like 19. And comes up, it's like, hey, I was like, yeah, I know what's going on. I know the election's coming up, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, well, can we count on you to vote for Herrera? It's like, why would I vote for Herrera? It's like, oh, this, that, and that, they're talking about immigration, blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, you're in a campaign. I understand that these are probably the talking points that you're handed, but you're in a campaign. You should know what the person who's you're campaigning for can and can't do. And, you should have some moral obligation to not just come to my house and lie to me at my door if you know better.
That's not what they're getting paid to do.
They're not getting paid at all. They're volunteering to do.
Oh.
I mean, some people do get paid. It depends on the organization of the machine. But, that the lack of morals in that, or it's one of the, again, it's one of the other. It's the same thing I complain about Elaine Davis about. It's like, she either doesn't know better, which is bad, or she's lying, which is bad. Which is the same thing with this kid at my door. It's like, either you don't know better, which is bad because you're getting deep into the process here. You're going and asking people at their houses to vote for your guy, and you don't know. Or you do know, and you're lying to me because you want your guy more than you care about being honest with people as you're knocking on the door. Neither one of those are good situations.
Right.
And which, again, for me and for any of you who are asking for my vote out there that may be listening, you automatically lose my vote if you do that. That is an automatic, I'm not voting for you.
Sweet. You just got taken off the door knocker list.
I mean,
don't come to my house.
They haven't taken me off yet for some reason. They keep coming, and it's like,
I mean, you're on the list of engaged constituents. Right.
I'm likely to vote, but I'm not so likely to vote one way or the other.
True. Yeah.
That
so
is,
you're going to get it from both sides.
I will vote, and they know that I vote every time I get the opportunity to vote. But they also know, especially the Republican side, they know I will vote in a Republican primary, which means if you're primarying as a Republican, I will vote in that primary. So if you're primary and you need to come to my door, well, you think you need to come to my door because you have a chance of getting me to get your guy versus the other guy, because when I'm primarying, I'm only getting those two, or three, or whatever it is in the primary. Now that we've passed the primary, we'll see what the general does. I'm curious. I mean, hell, I'm sure Matt, before he left, put my address on the list anyway, just because he knows it humors me. And I did get to meet the new chair at at Holaroo. He was fun. I gave him my card. He hasn't emailed me yet, but
nice.
See if he'll come in. See if I can find the new. Oh, that reminds me, the old chair of the Republican Party. I need to look this up to make sure I quote him correctly. Sorry, Randy, if you didn't want me to share this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Randy Pace at a very questionable hour to be texting an adult at 10:22 p.m. on Monday. He texted me. He said, "America is looking for statesmen. Are you ready to answer the call?" And I said, America might be, but the machine cares not for what Americans want. And he didn't respond to that.
Nice.
I don't know if he accidentally added me to an automatic text that he was doing for something.
Right.
I don't know how involved he is now, because I think he's still acting former chair because Herrera fully stepped out and asked him to cover his former chair status because he was busy with work and running for this other office. So I don't know if he's still involved with the local party in the executive side of it or not, but that seems like that was one of those. He was texting out some people that he thought he might talk into running for a certain seat. Maybe that's too late for that. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't followed up to be like, what the fuck was that, man? But
was I supposed to get that?
Was that for me? Because that didn't really seem
maybe
like
it was like, maybe he'll forget that I sent that to
him.
No,
the wife's convinced that I am going to run for office at some point, which I'm not convinced that I won't, but I don't know. I got a couple of years I could run for mayor of Knox County.
Yeah.
Larson, I'm coming after you, buddy. But I can't. I mean, even if I wanted to run, I can't run. Because I won't run as a party member, and I can't get anywhere if I'm not a party member. Like, unless there's some structural changes to the way we elect people in the next couple of years.
Let's get a grassroots effort.
There's no fucking way. Like, Larson's going to run. Like, we'll see who all runs. I mean, we know Larson's running. We know Larson's going to run for county mayor. Pretty sure Jacobs is going to run for governor in a couple of years. See who else throws their name in the hat for the county mayor race. But, like... I'm
going to say Mike Hammond, I believe. Former county commissioner, and I think he's something now.
Is talking about running for mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. He ran for trustee or something else.
He's something right now.
Yeah, I know the name.
I know he was on county commission, I think, for a while, because I remember the name from back in the day. Because there was a Hammond, and then there was a Mark Harmon that I always had to make sure. I'm like, wait, do they say Hammond or Harmon?
Yeah. I mean, he's friends with all the Republicans.
Yeah, I want to say he put out one of those.
I think he was a trustee or something like that.
I think he might be right. I think he is a trustee right now.
Yeah, he was.
Clerk. Okay.
He works at the clerk's office. He is not. He's the court clerk. He is the court clerk?
Not sure.
He is the court clerk, or he works at the court clerk's office?
But I think he announced that he was. I think it was kind of one of those half-ass I've started an exploratory committee.
Well, he's got a mixed bag of his top level. His at least in the mutual friends list that I can see, because he's got Randy and Herrera as friends, but he also has Courtney and Hubert Smith and Richard Bean, who are. I don't know if Richard Bean's a Democrat or not, but I know Courtney is. Ran into her at the Hollaroo. She was.
Yeah, I think he was on county commission for a while, but I think he announced that he was, I guess, starting a campaign to look at running for mayor.
Get on it, buddy. Do it. Oh, with Martha LaRue at Care-Cuts.
Was he with Care-Cuts? Yeah.
Do. I don't know. I don't see anything on his Facebook feed that announced anything. He's a Tay-Tay fan. Can't hate on him for that. What an outfit, buddy.
Nice.
His wife's a babe. Anyway, yeah, we'll see who all runs, but it's like, I get that, sorry, random tangent on that part, but, what, it's not like I could get the Democrats to back my campaign anyway, if I wanted to.
Why?
Because I'm not a Democrat, and I wouldn't want to be labeled as a Democrat.
Yeah.
But even if I wanted to swallow the pill just because the only way I can run is to be in a party, I don't align with Democratic ideals for the most part. At least as I understand them. I guess it doesn't really matter, I suppose. You don't have to be a Democrat to pretend to be a Democrat and run as a Democrat. Or a Republican.
You don't have to be a Democrat to interact with them.
No.
Knowing that you will most likely be working with some.
Sure. Well, if I were elected, I would be working with some, because there will be some on county commission, whomever those people are when that time comes. But it's not that they're not going to campaign. They're not going to help me campaign because I'm not aligned with their philosophy.
No, but they may not actively campaign against you. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if anything, they might, they might support me in the sense that I might take some votes from giving their guy a better shot. But they'll have a Democrat running for mayor, and it ain't going to be me.
Right.
And so I'll be running as an independent, and both parties will hate and love me because they're going to hope that they can pencil me in as taking votes from the other. And so same. I mean, it's the same thing the Kennedy game is, at least on the local level. I don't have to worry about Kennedy's problem about getting ballot access, which is a whole other set of bullshit. I will have ballot access if I were to run for mayor. But, I don't know. It's a good gig. I mean, it pays well. It's like $250,000 a year. It's not bad money. No, it's not. It's like $187,000.
Mayor.
Yeah.
Right.
$187,000. a couple of the judges when you get over the $200,000 mark. And then the medical examiner is the highest paid Knox County employee. I think is what it was.
They got to look at dead bodies.
I'm not opposed to it. Like, it makes sense. We would like somebody who knows what they're fucking doing, and you're not going to get a doctor who knows what the fuck they're doing for $100,000 a year. Nobody's going to run for that seat to take an extreme pay cut. I mean, that's the problem with, like that's why the judges get paid so well, because most of them were practicing lawyers, and for them to give up their practice to take that judge seat, they can't take a giant pay cut to do it.
Right.
But I think the mayor is not allowed to have another job. It is a designated full-time job, so you cannot have another source. You can have another source of income, but you can't have any direct employment. Like, I wouldn't have to sell my business,
right?
But I can't work at it. I mean, I could. I can do what I normally do, which is next to nothing on the day-to-day basis.
You could be an owner, not an owner-operator, or
right.
Whatever.
And the county commission gets to keep their day jobs. So does city council. See, I kind of think I want to I might get my house annexed and run for Roberto's seat. Be in District 2 in the city. That might be a fun one. Feel bad for that guy. It's a rough spot.
Sure.
His daughter died a couple weeks ago.
I did read that.
Yeah, it's it happens. It's the world we live in. Alcohol was involved. Luckily, I don't know if luckily is not the right words. I'm not sure. When I first saw the story, I was assuming it was like they got hit by a drunk driver. It turns out that her friend who was driving them from wherever they were to wherever they were going was drunk and wrecked. So it was a single car accident.
Yeah, that was my initial reading of it. Was somebody drunk had run into them.
Yeah, no, it was that they were all drunk apparently. There was like 3 or 4 of them in the car that were all drunk and wrecked, and
damn.
Two of the 4 died. The other 2 were hurt pretty bad. It sucks. It just sucks. And there's no, I don't know. There's no. That is just part of reality, for lack of a better word. It's a shitty part of reality, but it is. So, condolences, my friend. That's a bummer. All right. On that real high note, you got any fun news of the weird for us?
There's a couple of interesting ones. Let me get them pulled back up. Oh yeah, did you hear about the horses that broke loose in London?
I did not hear about the horses that broke loose in London. Were they some Royal Guard horses? Whose horses were they?
I believe they were.
I was confident in my guess.
Yeah, 2 military horses that bolted and ran miles through the streets of London after being spooked by construction noise and tossing their riders were in serious condition Thursday after undergoing operations.
The horses or the riders were in?
The horses.
Because they fucked up their legs running through the city streets.
They were among a group of 4 horses that broke free during routine exercises Wednesday. Galloped through central London during morning rush hour. A 5th horse tried to bolt but couldn't break free. 3 of them are fine. 2 of them are unfortunately in a relatively serious condition, and obviously we'll be monitoring that condition.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, I thought it was more like just like a crazy, like they broke loose. I didn't realize they'd actually got hurt, I guess, in the process.
Yeah, that's a... Yeah.
Thought they were just like running rampant through like downtown, like fucking London, which is crazy.
Yeah. I have no recollection, like a very little recollection of our trip there.
Really?
Yeah, like of any of the specifics of it. Like I remember going in the Tower of London, and I remember it being like a pretty nice hotel. But like I remember it just feeling like it was...
You didn't go to the Tower of London.
I did.
Did you? Oh, okay. I didn't.
Pretty sure I did. Went and hung out with the Beefeaters. I got a picture of me with the Beefeater somewhere. That's on real film, so I'd have to go find that actual picture. It's not digital.
Must have been a day I took off.
I remember we went.
We went to Miss Saigon.
In Miss Saigon, I went to St. Paul's.
I went to the outside of St. Paul's.
I went in and climbed the staircase, and that's when I realized that I have a heights issue. Because it's pretty damn tall.
I don't remember. We visited like 2 castles, but I don't remember which castles we visited. One was like outside of the town, and one was closer to the town.
The outside of the town one is the one that's got all the cool brickwork.
I kind of picture the outside like it was like a lighter color, like outside ramparts and whatnot.
Yeah.
I remember me and a few other people tried to go into like some little pub and get something to eat, and we realized that we were way out of place.
Yeah.
And we didn't really have time to like sit down and really get something to eat anyway.
Yeah. But I barely like, because we did the parade. What we did a parade, right?
Yeah, we did the New Year's parade.
Yeah, I barely remember doing that parade.
I walked through because it was cold.
I just remember it being like I guess not dissimilar to my UT trip to the Bush's inaugural parade that we did. Like it was just all a blur. Like I remember bits and pieces. And
remember we stopped in some kind of restaurant that I think was closed down. And we all had shepherd's pie. It seemed like this like kind of like weird generic spot, or weird generic stop. I want to say that was like right before we went to another like weird place that did a New Year's Eve party.
I do remember that was in the hotel though.
Was that at the hotel? It was like us and another school from America.
Right, in the ballroom. It was like a ballroom in the hotel.
Was that at the hotel?
I think it was at the hotel. Remember one of our friends got real drunk and threw up all over their hotel room.
Yeah. I remember using my cologne trying to like spray.
Yeah,
like,
I remember buying cigarettes
on the
for
floors.
like $15 a pack or whatever it was. It's like £7 or something like that, and the exchange rate was like $2.
I bought a pack of cigarettes or 2.
Yeah. Yeah, we were bad kids.
Remember, we tried to watch cricket and figure out what the fuck was going on.
Yep. Cricket was on all the TVs all the time.
Because we had a pretty prime room. Like, we were, like, right on the main floor, just, like, a couple doors down from, like, the main lobby.
Yeah.
And yet we never got busted for smoking in our room.
I think, well, I mean, you could smoke back then, so it wasn't like we weren't supposed to, obviously.
Right. That's I meant more from our chaperones that were, I don't even remember who the fuck our chaperone was. I think they checked on us once.
Yeah. I
remember the fire alarm going off in the middle of the night one night, and everyone had to evacuate the hotel. And we're like, what the fuck's going on? Like, oh, the fire alarm was going off.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. I have a terrible memory. It's awful. Which is one reason I shouldn't get into politics.
I've got pictures.
I do too, somewhere. I have a box or 2 or 10 of all sorts of photos from years past when we had to actually have print photos.
Yeah.
But anyway, one more. And that started off so fun and then got bummer real quick.
Yeah.
And then we pined about my memory loss.
I think we talked about this a little bit, but apparently cicadas are so noisy in South Carolina County that residents are calling the police.
Because it sounds like a siren or because they can't sleep? Like, why?
Yeah, I guess calling the sheriff, asking why they can hear sirens or a loud roar.
Yeah, that's a...
letting people know that whining sound is just the male cicadas singing to attract mates after more than a decade of being dormant.
You would scream like a fire truck too if you just woke up. And
some people have even flagged down deputies to ask what the noise is all about.
Very reasonable. Not very reasonable. I don't know. How do you not know what cicadas sound like if you live there? I mean, I know it's
you lived in the South long enough. I mean,
yeah. Like, to me, like, that's one of those where you have the window open and that's and you go, oh, it's officially summer. Like, that's like one of those like officials to me. Like, that's how you know.
I think there's some that like we hear almost every year, and then there's some, I guess, that come into the news more that are these crazy like mass exoduses of the ground.
We talked about this like last week, 2 weeks ago. I remember I saw a chart, and it's like by region. And it's like the Southeast, which we're included in or whatever, has like 5 major broods or species or whatever. And like it's a 1-year cycle, a 4-year cycle, a 7-year cycle, and a 15-year cycle or something like that. And so however many mathematical decades go by or whatever, and all of those line up at the same time. And that's when we get our super crazy ones.
Oh, is it?
But it's like it's a species thing. It's like the certain species, they only come out every 7 years.
Right.
And that's a species that's local to us, and they've been dormant for whatever, but they're coming out this summer. It happens that lines up with our 1 year because we get that every year, obviously.
But I think we get cicadas every year.
Right. We have a 1 year species that lives around here too, but then we also have like a 15-year one, and so what would that be? Every like 114 years or something like that, all 4 would line up at the same time.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Where they all come out basically at the same time, and so either you have a very long period where the cicadas are loud because they don't come out at the exact same time, or it's super, super loud because they're all out at the same time. Because I think we're supposed to have I think we're on a 7-year one here locally this year, is what they were saying. It's like we have our 1 year and 7 year this year.
I think this one's like the 13 or 14 year or something.
The South Carolina one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that might be ours too. Yeah, it might be that. We might have a louder one this summer because of that too. So, let's call my friend. Anything exciting? World-changing?
Exciting.
Alrighty. We did a show. We're late. This is going to come out later on this evening. So, you only missed like most of a day without hearing our lovely, lovely voices. Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Holler Boo is on the docket. Registration stuff will open soon. It's going to be October 26th. That's a bye week in case you're a football fan. So it'll be a crazy... Hopefully we're going to take everybody that's not watching football that day and they'll be out and having a good time. Bigger concert than last time. More derby cars. More street vendors. Bigger is better, I hope. Almost Agreement at gmail.com. Favorite podcast provider. Hit us up. Let us know what you need. I'm in talks with Miss Jennifer Owens about getting her to come in, and we're going to go down all the bills. And I will probably complain about how worthless all of them are. Sam might find a couple that he actually agrees with, but we'll see what happens. It'll be fun. And I guess at some point we'll start talking about the upcoming election. We got till August before all the local stuff is going to get... Well, it'll start heating up here in a couple months, but August is election day, so keep in touch and stay tuned for that. Big shout out to Tyler Givens for interrupting the mayor's budget speech. That's always good fun. I love pointless protests. Bye, everybody. Have a good day.